you cannot serve others if you do not serve yourself. And I say something else. When you serve yourself, truly, I mean, I don't mean serve yourself like self-serving, but serving yourself through rest and nourishment and wellness, then you're more able to serve others. Because you can't pour from an empty cup. So taking care of yourself first and foremost. If you are obliterated, if you are burnt out, if you are exhausted, there's no way to provide legitimate, genuine service to others.
What is wellness? Today on Bets and Badges, my colleague, co-host, retired police chief and military historian David Magnusson, and I, Robert Asencio, joined by this magnificent young immigration attorney, Laura Kelly. We will be speaking about efforts to improve ourselves and ensure our wellness. She's an immigration attorney. We have been speaking from the law enforcement perspective about wellness, striving to be just that, deal with our issues. David, you and I have talked about this with many guests for a better part of a year now. But Laura, welcome, and thank you for joining the conversation. And you know, the interesting thing is that we forget that we kind of get caught up. Let me back up here. We get caught up in our own little silos. Law enforcement, military. You know, we think we're the only ones with the issues,
right? And
we don't even think we have issues, right? But at the end of the day, we do. But we forget that the rest of the world are dealing with stress, and they too need to strive for wellness. And there are people like yourself who are very cognizant of wellness and made a point to, you know, stand up and try to help people. So let's bring into the conversation. Let's talk about wellness. You're an attorney. What kind of stress do you go through as an attorney? You don't have stress, do you?
As an immigration attorney, right? I don't have any stress whatsoever. No. I think your point is well made, that we all are human beings in a society that is stressful, and every single human being is dealing with the human condition, which includes uncertainty, anxiety, stress, all kinds of things. And so we all have our unique perspectives around wellness based on our professions or our lives or our personal circumstances. But I think fundamentally, we are all dealing with the exact same things.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts, man? I mean, what is stresses right now for you? A baby coming in?
Oh, I came in the middle of the night.
Congrats.
Yeah, another grandkid. Yeah, it's all good. After here, I'll walk down the street to South Miami and say hi to him. No, you know what? It's like, and I always use the boxing metaphor. It's like, it doesn't matter what type of fighter you're fighting. The fundamentals are the same. If you want to survive from getting knocked down or losing on points, you got to have a certain skill set. Yeah. Cover up, move. You know, don't get caught up on the ropes. And so this is basically the same thing. How do you deal with it? Now, what may work for you may not work for me, but I think moving forward, we're all working at something to minimize the stress. Yeah. Some things work better than others. So what stresses me? I think you touched upon it. Uncertainty, I think. That's always been a bothersome thing for me. That causes me some stress and anxiety. One leads to the other. I don't think they all come in at the same time. But it's nice if they all leave at the same time.
So let's describe that. Let's break that down.
All right.
Uncertainty. Is that anxiety?
I would. Oh, sorry.
Go, please.
I think that uncertainty is a fact of life, and what we believe is certainty is actually just familiarity. We have the same routines, and we assume every single day that things will turn out a certain way, and that whenever we are faced with an uncertain circumstance, we think that's unique. But the truth is that day in and day out, every single thing that we deal with is uncertain. We don't know if we're going to be in a car accident. We don't know if we're going to have a health issue. Anything can happen at any time. And so the nature of being a human in this society is that our next moment is uncertain. And so the ability, and I think that does produce a lot of anxiety, because our human brain wants to be prepared for anything that could possibly happen. So it's constantly trying to protect us from any potential danger. I mean, if you think back to the humans, early humans in caves, right? The people who survived were the ones that were neurotic, looking around constantly for danger. And so now, 10,000 years later, the people who were the most present and able to see and perceive danger are the ones who are now living on this earth, right?
Yeah, but so we all experience some level of anxiety, right? Certain uncertainty creates anxiety, for sure. The unknown, fear of the unknown, right? But at one point, does it become unhealthy? And do we recognize when it becomes unhealthy? And what do we do to snap out of it?
When things are uncertain, and this is just my perspective, if they're not, uncertainty, do we snap out of it? I just don't think the uncertainty lasts that long. Ultimately, there's going to be an answer, yes or no, right or left, right? It's not going to go on indefinitely. For instance, let's just say, for argument's sake, LSAT test, you're waiting for the results, uncertainty, the stress. But within a couple of weeks or something, you're going to get the results. And it may make you happy, may not, but that stress will be gone. You see, I don't think it hangs over your head. For some it may, but thankfully a lot of the uncertainties, give it a day, give it a month maybe, the uncertainty passes.
Yeah.
Now how do you live with it, and how do you move from that to learn from it? I think that's the question.
I think so. Rick Rubin, right? Famous Rick Rubin. I love his stuff, right? He's one of the many who have said that fear is, let me see how we can put this. Fear is basically a feeling that often materializes into a waste of time, if you will, waste of energy. Because most of what we fear never comes to fruition, right? But it's really, how do we train ourselves not to fear? Like, let's back up. Let's go back into our careers. Excuse me. If we go back into our careers, think of the uncertainty of going out into an operation, a high liability operation, right? When we're going to go out to serve a warrant, or you're going to go after a subject, or you're going to go after that robbery subject or murder or whatever, whoever. We're going to stop that car. And we overcome that fear, and then we engage. And then all hell breaks loose. And then we're left with the aftermath of how do we sort this through this mess that we created? How do we contextually deal with those steps? And in your case, I don't know I'm sure life itself, parent, life, has a lot of stress. What tactics do we use to overcome those fears and to bring it back into the now so that we can resolve the issues?
Yeah, and I would just acknowledge that there's maybe circumstance specific, something like an LSAT test or something, a concrete example of something that's happened that may be uncertain. But there's just a low level of uncertainty in everybody's lives as a whole. Like, will I be able to put food on the table for my family? Will I have a job tomorrow? I'm an immigration attorney, so what's going to happen in the new administration? So all these things produce an uncertainty. But I think to your point, the example that you gave about an operation, it's preparation. Right? It's preparing our minds and our bodies in the best way possible and recognizing that we don't know what's going to happen. And the mind loves to think about every single scenario that it could possibly come up with in order to be prepared. But the fact is that's not helpful because we spin out of control. And that's where maybe stress becomes unmanageable anxiety. So it's preparation. It's making sure that your body is in the best health that it can be, and that your mind is in the best health that it can be, that you are taking steps on a daily basis to ensure that you are resourced for whatever may come. And that's, to me, that is how we deal with, managing of uncertainty, managing of stress, and recognizing also that there's a certain aspect of it that you're just going to have to accept. You just have to accept it, and that's really hard. We don't like to accept things that cause us discomfort.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I think once you accept it, you almost breathe a sigh of relief. But
we fight it.
But
that's before acceptance, right?
And really, that's what gets you tired out. Fighting it. Sometimes. I'm not taking it to this level, but what Kubler-Ross is, with death, when you get to the acceptance part, I'm not taking it, as seriously as death, Lord forbid, but the acceptance part, it mellows things out. But I think what you're saying is we got to prepare for any and all eventualities, right? Prepare for it. Just be ready for it. But what was the quote you said on, because I wanted to stop you before with Ross, about the fear.
Yeah, it's at times it becomes a waste of energy. Most of the time it becomes a waste of energy because the fear never, what we fear is going to occur never comes to life.
But you got to be careful not to fear the things that you really should fear and go into it, with reckless abandonment, I think, because that never ends well either. So it has to be a balance.
Right. I also wanted to your point about the waste of time or waste of energy. Is it's important for us to understand that a lot of us suffer from decision fatigue. Right. The workings of our mind require energy, and it might not be the same as working out our bodies, but our brains account for a huge portion of our energy expenditure on a daily basis. So when we're thinking, overthinking, we exhaust ourselves. So a lot of the people that think, I just am too tired to work out, or I'm too tired to plan my schedule, I'm too tired to take these steps that would actually be beneficial. I think part of it is actually because we have a mind that literally does not stop. It like runs on a motor. We're just constantly in our heads. And so for me, a huge part of how you pull back from that is to have a mindfulness practice that allows you to say, look, trying to figure out every eventuality is, it can sometimes feel comforting in the moment, but it actually expends a great deal of our precious and limited energy resources.
So what's your wellness pattern like?
Well, I think starting with a very simple meditation practice is extremely important. Moving your body. I think also reading about things or there's YouTube, there's so many resources about how to deal with the spinning out of control, the thought process. One of the things, I know everyone talks about mindfulness and meditation, but I don't mean sitting here for 45 minutes every day and saying, I'm saying,
Can't stop the mind.
and take 5 minutes. And again, meditation is not about not thinking, right? The idea is, I can never meditate because I cannot clear my mind of thoughts. The point is not to clear your mind of thoughts. The point is to sit quietly and notice when you're spinning off in thought and coming back to the body, coming back to the breath. And just something like that helps us start to create the ability to notice, I'm spinning out. And only through noticing that can you come back and say, okay, what really can I do in this moment to deal with this circumstance, right? If it's the LSAT, it's reminding ourselves that there's an end point. This is a finite issue. We'll find out here, then, and then I know that I can figure out the next best step.
Or better yet, for people that are in the now, making their bills, meeting their family's needs, their work, right? Getting ahead in work, or just making it through work, because we've had our share of pain in the ass as bosses that have been intolerant and ignorant and just repressive, and we've had to deal with them. What's your wellness strategy?
Well, sometimes doing nothing is doing something. For our rock and roll fans out there that watch us, let me go into something that Rush in one of their lyrics said.
All right, let's hear it.
If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice.
Yeah,
there you
that's
go.
true.
From the song Free Will. And sometimes maybe that's the best route to go. I don't think it's as easy. It's not easier said than done, though, because we, especially people that I think are hard on themselves, that demand probably more of themselves than others demand of them. It's a little difficult. You have to learn new tricks, perhaps new trades, how to disconnect, how to calm it down. Because I often say, my mind's spinning. I just can't stop thinking. Sometimes I'll put down notes. I say, all right, I got to relax, and try to enjoy a book or something. But that's what happens. I mean, I think we overthink things a lot.
Can I say something to that point?
Yeah.
Because I completely agree with you. I think rest is so important.
Yeah.
And sometimes what we think is rest is not rest. Right? So if you're, before going to bed, scrolling through social media, that is not rest, right? That is your brain still working. You're still consuming. And it's again, it still is exhausting. It feels, sometimes it's very rewarding because we're getting those dopamine hits, right? We're getting likes. We're seeing, this, it's designed in a way to maintain our attention, and it's giving us those dopamine hits. But that's not rest, right? Reading a book certainly is restful, or, taking a walk outside in nature, spending time time with our family, spending time with our pets, not consuming, even television. It's very entertaining. It's very rewarding. And it can be, don't get me wrong. I love good reality television. That's my guilty pleasure, but that is not rest, right? Rest is nourishing, right? Rest is, allows us to, just nourish our mind, nourish our body, and nourish our connections.
Rachel, what do you do to rest? What's a stress reliever for you? That's our producer, Rachel Brummage, always behind the scenes, taking care of us. It's your turn to be on the hot spot. Talk to us.
Taking walks. I love taking walks in the community, in the nature. That's the only thing that really soothes me.
So taking walks in the nature and community, that's the only thing that soothes you?
Yeah, I have a bad scrolling addiction, so walking helps.
So I think you bring up a good point, though, and thank you for that. We're so engaged in our lives, most of us, right? That for me, it's in my so many years of being on this earth, I think I'm finally coming to peace with myself. And Lord knows that's been a journey.
Yeah.
So the peace that I'm finding comes from this realization that I must think of myself first, right? I must think of myself, and I must think of, put value that on this fact that if I'm not good to myself, I'm not going to be good to anyone.
I completely agree with that.
Isn't that something we always brought up in the earlier episodes?
Yeah.
Being on the airplane, you're sitting there, and the stewardess or flight attendant says, if the mask comes down, put it on yourself first. It goes against everything you believe in if you have a kid. But it makes sense, because if you go out knocked out cold, you can't take care of your kid. Put the mask on first, then worry about your child.
This is something I talk about a lot. As immigration attorneys or in any other service-oriented profession, we are these are people who have a tendency to put other people before themselves, and that certainly was something that I struggled with. And I had to make the same recognition, which is you cannot serve others if you do not serve yourself. And I say something else. When you serve yourself truly, I mean, I don't mean serve yourself like self-serving, but serving yourself through rest and nourishment and wellness, then you're more able to serve others. It could be because you can't pour from an empty cup. So taking care of yourself first and foremost. If you are obliterated, if you are burnt out, if you are exhausted, there's no way to provide legitimate, genuine service to others.
For sure. That includes diet, exercise.
Sure.
And even if you can't get out there in the gym, walking. Rachel puts on a great example. I mean, walk to the community. It's freaking great. Breathe the air. Look at the birds. Look at the cats. Look at the dogs, whatever. Look at the neighbor's house, ugly or pretty house, whatever. But look at what's around us, man. Life is so good, right? Life is worth living. But I know we're doing this in reverse, and I wanted to take a moment to ask you, who is Laura Kelly?
Well, I am a mom. I have an 11-year-old daughter. You mentioned already I'm an immigration attorney. I'm in solo practice. I've had my practice for over 10 years. I'm a native Texan.
We're not going to hold that against you.
I don't hold that against myself anymore either. And I also am a certified mindfulness instructor and a wellness coach for attorneys.
There you go. Laura Kelly. David, any last closing thoughts?
Listen, this is a work in progress.
Yeah.
We just
Is that the word of the day? The phrase of the day? Work in progress.
Work in progress. Wheels keep turning, right? Watching the wheels, as John Lennon would say. Keep at it.
Learn to ride the waves, right? Learn to ride the waves.
Right.
Learn to ride the waves of uncertainty.
Yeah, stay on top of the board and just ride the waves.
Yeah, for sure, man. Things are going to happen. For those of us who curse from time to time, shit's going to happen. It's how we deal with it, right? Look, we said it before. We will say it, and I will continue to repeat it. You're not alone out there. You're not the only one that's going through hardship. You're not the only one struggling. You're not the only one experiencing anxiety. I will tell you, for every person that I've seen on TV, in the public, that's been composed, that's delivered a speech, they too have been stressed, and they too have felt what you and I feel. They just don't show it. They learn how to deal with it. I don't know what else to say other than thank you, Laura Kelly, my partner and co-host. Thank you so much. Rachel Brummage, our producer behind the scenes. Always awesome to have you there. Michael Grant Miller, the community news team, we thank you, but better yet, you, the audience. We couldn't do it without you. Drop us a line. Let us know what you think. You can find us on all podcast platforms, or at least most major podcast platforms, under Bets and Badges, at Bets and Badges. And like I always say, if you don't get it, it's at Bets and Badges. Look forward to speaking with you next time. Thank you.